Okay, so we're recording. So we're gonna open up our sketch. File, open. My sketch is on here. And you can open it directly. You don't have to do a document and place it or anything. So we'll do the dress sketch first. We're gonna open, let me see, I just have a list of things I wanna make sure I show you guys. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna edit this to make the actual sketch a little bit darker and the page a little bit wider. So I'm going to go to image, adjustment, and I'm gonna go to levels. And to make the darks darker, as you can see, I'm taking this one at the very end, at this black side, and I'm making it darker. Notice it makes everything darker, so you can see all the shadows on the page. You can see all my eraser marks. That doesn't look very good. So then I'm going to take this light colored one, and I'm going to pull that towards the middle as well. As you can see, the light's got a lot lighter. So you can play with how dark and light you want that. That looks a little crazy. So maybe we'll go there and hit OK. As I zoom in though, you can see that there's a lot of gunk from my scanner. There was dust. You can still kind of see some of these eraser marks. So what you can do before you end up unlocking this, you can use the eraser tool, and you can go in, and you don't really have to worry about the outside because we will crop this, but you can go in and start to erase some of these things that you don't want. So as you can see, I'm just erasing some of these lines and some of the dirt that was on the scanner. This is a good way too, like if you kind of messed up, you can start erasing some of those lines and clean it up a little bit if it's a little too sketchy for your taste. I think the face looks okay. Go down here. Since I know I'm going to crop this, I'm not going to worry about stuff way outside, but this stuff that's right close, I am going to erase. And again, you can erase some of these faded eraser lines. Just remember that you can only go back so far, and right now, if I start erasing things, then and I go too far, I'm erasing on the actual image, so you may want to save a copy of your original just in case you go a little crazy and then you hate what you've done. In Photoshop, it's good to have a copy of the image, or to, when you save it, save as and save it under a different file name so you have the original. Right. Okay, so I think I've erased enough. You can crop this if you want. So I'm using the crop tool, cropping this out, hit enter. I may want to go in and still erase some of the outside here. Just to make sure I have a really clean image. If you want to be placing this into Photoshop, into Illustrator later on, and let's say you want to have your girls sort of next to each other and maybe overlapping, you wouldn't be able to do that with this because the background is still white. So if you wanted to do that, you could unlock the background and start erasing the background so that you'll just have the outline of your girl. This is similar to what we did with your mood board if you want, you know, certain shapes to be outlined. So sometimes you will need to do this. You can use your select and mask to do this. I like doing the overlay. Indicates masked areas. So right now I'm using the quick selection tool to just try and get this outer edge, but I'm going to need to go back in with the brush to refine a little bit. Oops. So now I'm just using the brush. I can leave the inside of her hand, I think. And I want to make sure that I'm getting that outline of her hand there to make sure that's included in my selection. I might use the Refine Edge tool to get that little bit there. You can zoom in and clean that up just a little bit more. I think I'm doing this backwards, but that's fine. We can invert the selection. Make sure you're zooming in so you can get a really good view of what you're selecting. Okay, let's check what we've got. I think that looks good, so I'm gonna hit OK. Oops, wrong one. Oh no, okay, that sucks. Oh no, okay. We'll redo this really fast. As you can see, I don't use Photoshop a lot. Alright, let's try and do this fast. wonder if, I'm going to see something in a second. Okay. All right. I wonder if I can, no, I can't. Okay. So I'm gonna hit OK. So now if you were to place this in your Illustrator document as a Photoshop file, you could then stack this and there wouldn't be the white outline on the around it. Okay, so from there, so for something like this, if you wanted to do hand rendering, then you could print this out and you could do your hand rendering there. If we want to do rendering with fabric, so I'm going to file and open one of these patterns. To add it to my patterns on Photoshop. I've already made the pattern a seamless pattern. We'll start with this. So as you can see, I've made it a repeat already. So I've got it through the middle of this and the middle of everything. I'm going to go edit, define pattern. And then we'd say foulard 1, that's fine. Click OK. Then we can add that pattern to this section of the dress. Okay, so when I did this on my computer, it worked. So let's see, select and mask. And I just want to make sure. So I'm gonna, instead of output to layer mask, I'm gonna output to selection so that when I click OK, it's gonna just be a selection. It's not gonna delete any pixels. Does that make sense? I'll show you guys. So we can start, oh, and then before I did that, just FYI, so I've already got a layer mask here. I've added another layer. So I'm going to start another edit on a new layer, which you just, this is the new layer button. So you just click that and a new one will pop up. I'm going to stick with layer 1. And then I go to select, selected mask. Then I went down here to output settings and I'm changing it to selection. Everything else is the same. So now I'm just going to cut out the this portion of the dress, the main portion. I don't think that's going to work, maybe with you. So I'm going to do the brush. I think that's going to be easier. I'll make it a little bigger to start out to save some time. Okay. So again, I just want this section of the dress. And then I will get a smaller brush here to go in. Select these areas. You could switch from adding to your section to deleting if you need to edit, if you've gone over. Up there. you get in these little corners, you may need to make your brush bigger or smaller. I don't really want to go outside the line because my fabric is going to be there. Whoops. Whoops, I forgot what I was doing. I don't want to go over here. All right, so we're almost there. Let's zoom out. That looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. And as you can see, it's just selected this section. If I was doing multiple colorways on this, I might do select, save selection, and do a main dress section and hit OK. So that if later on I'm going to Command D, oh no, I have to do the whole thing again. You don't. You can do select, you can do load selection, and main dress section and hit OK. So now we're going to add our pattern here. So we're going to go to its layer, new fill layer, and then I'm going to go pattern. So we've done this before, but it was a little bit ago. I'll name this pattern section main dress and hit OK. And as you can see, it's filled the layer with the pattern. So I'm gonna hit OK. This little foulard print. Problem is you can't see any lines underneath, so you can add a little filter here. You go multiply, and now you can see the layers underneath, or the stuff underneath. Here I might want to go in and refine this a little bit, but I think it's fine for what we have. So now we can do another one. We can do another layer, and we can go into select and mask, and we can fill this section. Oops, let's start by opening the other foulard. Foulard 2, we're going to open that up. We're going to define this pattern. So again, I've already created the repeat. I've done it at the top of this white cross, and I've cut it off right before that starts again. Same thing here. I started right at the end, and I cut it off right before the next one starts. We're going to go edit, and we're going to go define pattern. Foulard 2, that's fine. We'll go back to our sketch. So again, there's a new layer here. We can go back into select and mask, and we'll cut out this section. So same thing you did with the other side. I think I didn't get close enough to that outline, so I'm going to try and get a little bit closer and actually select the outline a little bit. So this is good if you have fabrics with texture, if you have prints that you want to use, fur that you want to render with instead of rendering it by hand. All right, let's just get a little bit smaller here to get this section. Okay, that looks a little weird up here. Okay, and then again, I'm going to make sure that output is output to selection, and I'm going to hit OK. And then again, I might save the selection, and I'll say contrast dress, just in case later on, so I don't have to do that all again. Then you're going to do the same thing. You'll do layer, new fill layer pattern. We'll say contrast. And there you go. I'm going to hit OK. Again, you can scale here if you want to make this bigger. We'll just do 100. And click OK. Again, here you can multiply to have those show up. So you've got that. Let's say you want to add highlights and shadows in Photoshop. So you can use these tools here. You can use the dodge tool, which will lighten pixels, and the burn tool, which will darken pixels. Let's start with burn. As you can see, you can't do anything right now. I'm going to click and it says the fill layer must be rasterized before proceeding, and it will no longer be editable as a fill. Do you want to rasterize the fill? Yes, I do. So now this is rasterized, so now I can go ahead and edit this. So as you can see, while I'm clicking with the burn tool, it's darkening those pixels and adding shadow. There's different levels. You can change the exposure, so you can make it really, really dark if you want. You can make it lighter. We'll stay at 50. You can affect just the midtone pixels. You can just affect the shadow pixels, and you can just affect the highlight pixels. For something flat like this, I don't really know how much that would change, but you can play around with that because it will look a little different. And then you can just go in and paint in some of these shadows here. Notice it's just affecting the layer that I'm on. So it's not going to affect the lighter blue fabric. So I'm going to say I think that looks pretty good. Next, if you want to add some highlights, you'll go to the dodge tool. And again, you can play with what pixels they're affecting. You could play with the exposure. And as you can see, it's lightening these pixels. You can obviously play with the size of your brush. You can play with the hardness. So if it, I usually for shadows and highlights don't have any hardness, so it has really soft feathered edges. And you can play with that as much as you like. So already there's giving some depth, there's giving some shadow there. You can go back to the main dress and do the same. So again, I'm going to go burn. I'm going to try and do it. I need to rasterize it. Do you want to rasterize it? Yes. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to start adding shadows here. This is, to me, easier if you have a tablet. But you obviously, if you're used to using a mouse, that is no problem. Just think about where the shadows would naturally be. Do you guys have any questions so far about this stuff? Yes.
I get lost a little bit when you insert two fabric.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can go back and do that.
I did the first one, but the second one, I don't know. I get lost from there.
So you got this first main body part?
Yes.
Okay, so you got that.
You have like another layer and then you put in there. I just don't know how to do that.
Okay, so we'll go back. So here's this. So you've got that. So let's say I like that. Then you could go back into, I'm going to do a little more and then I'll go back. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I will go to Dodge. Maybe you want to still add a little. I don't know if this necessarily needs any highlights, but we can if we want to. Just to pop that out. So you can see how much more movement and depth there is when you start doing this. Okay, the next thing is if you want to add maybe some skin color here, I'm going to add a layer. So I'm going to go down here to this little box. It's the new layer, and I add my layer. Then I'm going to go in, and maybe I'm just going to use the brush tool. I'm going to double click here to try and get a sort of skin color-ish. It might look weird, but let's just try it. And then obviously you can, so you can try and find, there's so many different kinds of brushes here. Here's the brush folder. The cool thing about some of these brushes is you can, some of them you can use your tablet and your stylus, and it'll kind of, depending on how hard you press onto your tablet, it'll read that and you'll be able to use that. I'm just going to use a basic one. And then again, you're going to add, if you want, you can change the opacity. So maybe change the opacity here. Obviously it's covering up stuff, but I'm going to add the multiply filter, so that will help. Oops. Maybe I up the opacity. Maybe I want a slightly darker color. Add some stuff here. And then I probably should clean this up a little bit. I've got my eraser. Same here. Oops, I keep accidentally pressing that button on my stylus. Let's say that looks good. And then here again, you can multiply, and that's going to bring out your, I didn't do the length, that's fine. That's going to bring out your stuff more. Okay, let me see if that's everything I wanted to show you, and then we can still do a little bit more. Okay, so you got a little lost, you said, when we did the second thing here. So I'm actually just gonna throw that away.
Right?
Sorry?
You recorded all this, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna add that back in. So this I'm gonna name as skin, because that's what it is. So I've done everything. So the way to add a new layer is you go down here, and this little square with the corner turned up is the new layer tab. So you click that, and that's going to be layer 1 now. Got that? Okay. Then we're going to go do the same thing that we did before, and I'm going to go select and mask, and I'm going to make this bigger. Pull out this section. So we did all that. I'm actually going to cancel because I did save that selection, because you've seen me do that. So I'm going to go in here and do contrast. So that was as if I did my select and mask all over again. And then I'm going to go to layer, new fill layer, and I'm going to do pattern. You could also, if you wanted to do a solid color, you could do that. So let's say solid color I'm going to say okay. Let's say we want this to be a very dark blue. I'm going to hit OK. And as you can see, you could do a solid color if you have a solid color fabric and multiply. And then again, you could start adding shadows. We're going to rasterize. And you could start adding shadows there. I keep doing that, sorry. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And also, like when you, I forgot what's that called, but when you get into the
Selected mask.
and then when you delete the background,
Uh-huh.
I cannot do that. It get into the body. How do you like shape it properly?
Okay, so let's open the other sketch here. Okay, so we'll quickly edit the levels here. There we go. I'm just gonna quickly clean this up a little bit. That's fine. Okay. So, select and mask. I'm gonna unlock the background. Select and mask. So you're saying that it's deleting the body?
Yeah, it's including the body too. So it's not like what you did, like you just delete the background.
Uh-huh. So are you but you have it highlighted like this, right? Are you highlighting like this?
Let me check. I mean, like, it's similar like this. It's kind of going outside.
Okay. So that's your question, is how to get it more precise?
Yeah, like what.
Okay. So in order to, when I first started, I was using the quick selection tool here. To get a little more precise, I'm going to use the brush tool, which is here. And that way, it only paints where I want it to paint. So that way, it only is painting where I want it to go. Quick selection you use to just kind of get the first, most of the pixels that you want. And then the brush tool is where you can get real specific and only choose what you want. Was that what you were having trouble with?
Yes.
Okay. And here again, I have it on output to selection, so we could do that, and I can show you how to. So you could delete the background the way that we first did it. Let's try and get that. And oops. Let's make this smaller. Okay, so let's say that's good. So you could output to layer mask, and that's going to delete everything in the red, which is the way that we did it the first way. You could do output to selection again, and it's selecting just the inside, and then if you wanted to, you could do select, inverse, and delete. So there's more than one way that you can delete the background. I'm going to crop this. Enter. Then we can do the gray jersey. So last time, I can't remember what class it was, but we reviewed how to make this into a seamless pattern with the offset filter, and we edited that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go edit, define pattern, and we'll say gray jersey seamless is fine. Then I'm going to go back to this sketch and we can do our top. So we can select a mask. Oops, cancel. I need to do a new layer because I don't want to, I just want to keep this layer as is. Select mask. And we can try and do this faster. So here I'm just using the brush tool, which is right here. And see, I didn't really clean this up very well when we first started, so there's still going to be pixels there, but I'm just going to be okay with that. Actually, I think I want... And I want to make sure that it's not going to come here. Oops. Okay. Output to selection, hit OK. I'm going to again save this. Just in case. And then we'll again layer, new fill layer, pattern. And there's your t-shirt. I'm going to hit OK. And again, multiply. From here again, obviously you can do dodge and burn. Sometimes I'll do a little dodge and burn. I might print this out later and I might go over it with colored pencil. Just again, sometimes when you print things out that have been edited like this on Photoshop, it can look still a little bit flat to me. This is just my personal taste. So sometimes I'll go in with a colored pencil just again to give it more depth, but it's definitely up to you. We could do hair this time. Again, I might use the brush, maybe a much smaller brush. Oops. And we can get like a dark brown color. That seems really dark. And I'm still kind of making it look hair-like by just doing these soft strokes. You may want to, let's do eraser, represent a highlight in the hair. So maybe some of the hair isn't really showing here. And then again, you can blend it in. That looks a little weird. I might just do the hair everywhere. Make sure you're on the right layer. Rasterize. And you can add your shadows. Do you guys want to review making the seamless pattern with the denim? Or are you guys good on that? Yeah, review? Okay. So we're gonna file, I'm gonna open the denim fabric. It's just a random thing I found online. So let's see, I haven't looked at this yet, so let's see what we can do. Filter, other, offset. We'll start this way. I don't really see a seam this way, maybe here a little bit, it's a little darker. So maybe we want to take some of these pixels and sort of put them here so it's a little bit more clean. We will use the clone stamp. Oops. I'm going to hold Option to decide where I'm taking the pixels from. I'm going to take it from over here, and I clicked. And then I'm going to just paint up to lighten these a little bit. I'm going to click there again. As you can see, it's a little bit more smooth color-wise. I think that looks okay. Then we can again go filter, other, offset. I'm going to stick this back to 0. We'll see what our vertical looks like. So here's our seam here. Hit OK. And again, it's not too bad, but there is kind of a line there, so I might still in clone stamp, hit Option and pull some pixels from up there just to cover these dark pixels a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. Oops. I'm going to say that's fine. I probably could work a little bit more on this, but I'm going to go File, Save. So now I've saved this as the JPEG. And then I'm going to go Edit, Define Pattern. Hit OK. We can go back to our sketch. And we will do a new layer. And we will select and mask. I'm going to do quick selection just to start, if it'll work. It's not really working very well for this, so I'm just going to go back into brush. Questions, I keep doing that. Questions on creating the seamless repeat or anything else? No, okay. So we'll just do this real quick. Try and be quick. Right, let's see. And since this is going to have fabric in it, I definitely don't want it to be sticking out here. We'll go on break in just a sec. I keep pressing that button, sorry. Okay, almost done. I'll put to selection, and we're gonna go layer, new fill layer, pattern, and there's your denim. It's a little choppy, it's not too bad. Maybe we scale it up a little bit. You can also, you know, play with scale if you want to make it look, if you want to kind of stylize your drawing, hit OK. We'll multiply. And then you can, this is going to be an easy way to add distressing as well. So we'll first burn, rasterize the layer. So obviously you can add your shadows. She'll have a shadow under her hand there. And then if you want, let's say you want to add some fading here. A lot of times you'll have fading. You can go in and make this a lot smaller and add whiskers. I would probably adjust the exposure a little bit so it's a little less harsh. But you can add whiskers that way. Highlight here. Yeah. So as you can see, using this can look really, really cool. It just depends on what you want to do, what you like. It's good for patterns, textures, etc.